Hey, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us for another new In the Queue product feature. My name is David Strausser, head of sales here at Quaint, and apologize, want that allow somebody else into the meeting. But yeah, my name is David Strausser, head of sales here at Quaint Business Solutions. Quaint is an SAP Business One provider who values excellency in customer service as well as knowledge of the SAP Business One application. Part of what we do at Quaint is to ensure we are always bringing the latest and greatest innovations in the SAP space to our existing customers and potential new customers, which is what brings us to our presentation today. Today, we have NewIntelligence's Corey Mendelson showing you around the NewIntelligence solution with some awesome AI stuff built in and how that kind of works with your SAP Business One, or if you're thinking about buying SAP Business One. So welcome, Corey. And just a quick reminder, we will have a Q&A session at the end. So any questions that pop up during the webinar, look, Corey is a real person. He's not AI generated. He's not a robot. Just basically throw the questions in the Q&A and we will get to them at the end of the show. So without that, I promise no digital paper cuts. Corey, if you're ready, I'm going to toss it over to you.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, David. And first off, I want to thank very much the folks at Quaint for inviting me to this great session. And I'm looking forward to showcase what we have and how we can help out people that are running and or looking at SAP Business One. So to get things started and get things underway, what we've done from a NewIntelligence perspective is we've created a solution specifically tailored for customers running SAP Business One, where there were challenges with regards to reporting, dashboarding, planning, budgeting, and forecasting, AI insight capability, just making it easier for business users to really be able to get the value out of their SAP Business One solution. What we've done is we've partnered with SAP as well as IBM, leveraging the IBM analytics solution, specifically Cognos Analytics and Planning Analytics, to integrate that into customers that are running SAP Business One, so they don't need to reinvent the wheel at the end of the day. So what we are providing is customers something that they can work with very, very quickly. They can be up and running very quickly. When I say very quickly, we're talking a 2-week time frame, and really providing value so you can work with the data that you've leveraged inside of SAP and making it available inside of these analytic solutions. So what we have for you today in terms of an agenda, we have an introduction to who we are as an organization, NewIntelligence, and how we kind of come to the table, what the value is of our quick start solution for SAP Business One, and then going down to why consider quick start as your solution, as there are many different analytics solutions that are out there. What differentiates the quick start solution for customers that are running SAP Business One? We'll go right into a demonstration, and then we'll end off with questions. If there are any questions, feel free to put those in the Q&A section, and we will make sure to address those questions at the end of the session and be able to address anything that you want to be able to see as well. Okay, so without any further ado, I'll go right into who we are. So as an organization, NewIntelligence was founded in 2008. Our global headquarters is in Montreal, Canada. We have sales offices in different cities around the world through either offices or through our partners. We are both an IBM, Microsoft, and SAP partner with a team of certified professionals. And what we focus on from a verticals perspective is we cover a variety of areas, from distribution to industrial to transportation to very, very specific areas as it relates to SAP Business One. Now, if the customer is running SAP Business One, this is where we kind of have our core competency. We know the tables, we know the system, and we work with an organization like Quaint that helps us kind of collaborate with them as well as with their customers to be able to make this a valuable solution. So again, if you are having challenges or wanting to have better capability in terms of extracting your data and being able to work with your data inside of SAP Business One, the collaboration between NewIntelligence and Quaint is going to be key. That being said, all we do from a from a services perspective is reporting, dashboarding, AI insights, planning, budgeting, and forecasting, leveraging the IBM tools of Cognos Analytics and Planning Analytics. And that's where we kind of come into play. We don't do implementation of SAP. That's where we rely on an organization like Quaint, who handles all the heavy lifting with respect to that. That being said, our roadmap. So from a roadmap perspective, we've had our quick start solution since 2017 when our first modules were released. We had a variety of things that were there where we started with, from quotations to orders. And the unique story is how it really started is with customers, or a specific customer that we were working with, were having challenges with regards to SAP Business One and being able to get access to the information. Because back then, they were working with the tools that were available inside of SAP Business One. And that are things like Crystal Reports. Things have elaborated over time in terms of what's available, but we're trying to make something that is affordable for the SAP Business One customer. And a lot of these modules that we've created over the years really came from use cases that customers had in terms of business problems that they wanted to be able to solve. However, that being said, even though they were business problems, the problems that we found when they were coming from one customer, we found that it was very common that other customers had the exact same issue. So what we tried to do is we tried to create a suite that customers would be able to leverage without having to reinvent the wheel. And again, a lot of times when we're developing and working on new things for customers, we start talking to those things to other customers, and they'll say, as soon as that's ready, I want it. So again, it really works as a family solution, for lack of a better word, because again, we build it for one customer, but we always build it with the idea that other customers are going to want to take that as well. But again, that could also be the starting point for a customer, because it might not be giving them everything that they want. Maybe it's going to give them 80% of what they need, and then we can go ahead and retrofit or customize or modify it specifically to that customer to give them exactly those requirements. So again, it's gone from 2017 all the way up to today. And again, we're constantly looking at new areas, because there are areas that are not being covered here. We're more than happy to work with our customers or the customers of Quaint to be able to deliver things that they might want to be able to see. In terms of the value prop of the solution that we go to customers with is it's very easy to implement. And when I say easy to implement, we have this cookie cutter model that we're working with, which is a pre-built area that customers can leverage what has already been done or what has already been put into play. So that's why it's easy to implement, to get things going, because we have our vanilla model, for lack of a better word, that we start with. It's simple to use from a business user perspective. Now, you can create really advanced things in regards to reports and dashboards and analytics. But again, what we're trying to do is make it available for customers that are not as technical savvy. And when we start talking about the AI stuff, you'll be able to ask those natural language questions that people will send either in Teams or they'll send in email to other people. But again, you can take that and then just put it into the system and it'll generate and come back to a result. So you don't have to have that lag time that you have to worry about. Things are very also quickly to deploy. So we always tell customers that it's going to take a 2 to 3 week window. We've seen situations where it's been much less than that. So again, we're leveraging either the infrastructure that the customer already has in play, whether that customer is in an on-prem area or if they're in the cloud. Again, we leverage the infrastructure that they have to make it very quick to be able to put into play. It's relatively inexpensive to get started, and you get that quick time to value. So again, you don't have to wait 3, 6, 9 months to be able to work with the tool. You're going to have it within the first couple of weeks to be able to play around with it and see where you can go and how you can kind of take advantage of it. And a lot of customers look at it from perspective of once it's implemented and put into play, the questions that we always get from customers is, I didn't realize I can do this. Does that mean I can do this, this, and that? And it really opens up their capabilities and their possibilities of where they can take the solution, because you're really just scratching the surface once you get started. So from a solutions feature perspective, at a high level, we work with customers that are both running SQL Server or HANA. You can deploy this either on the cloud or on premise. Again, we try to leverage as much as possible what the customer has in play so that they don't have to invest in infrastructure that they don't need. So we try to work with what they have. We work with their team, or we work with Quaint in order to help things be very, very smooth for the customer. That being said, there's also full-blown security. From a data perspective, you can control what people see, how people see things. You can create groups of people. So again, you can control not only what fields they see, what folders they see, but you can control what data they see. You can have situations where the customer is actually taking this information, and when they run a report, let's say, for example, a salesperson can only see their data. Another salesperson is only going to see their data, but it's the same report. So we can control that. But if the sales manager goes in, they'll be able to see all the salespeople. So again, you really have the ability to go down to row level security, or at the folder, at the column, at the field level, whatever you need. It's really robust from that perspective. The end user, when is interacting with the tool, there is nothing that they are physically installing on their machine when they're creating their reports, their dashboards, or their AI questions. Again, it's fully browser-based with the browser of their preference. They can also use their mobile phone. They can use their tablet. Again, it's really flexible in terms of how you can gain access to this information in a very easy fashion. You can look at different save as formats, whether it's going to be an Excel spreadsheet, whether it's going to be a PDF. Again, when the reports are being designed or the dashboards are being designed, whatever you're working on, you're not designing for how it's going to be deployed, because the system behind the scene is going to know what sort of device you're working with, and it's going to prepare that information in the way that is best suited for that device. Okay, so that's kind of from a high-level solutions feature perspective. So now what I want to do is I want to go straight into the demo so you can kind of see what it's all about. We have the database engine that's there. Again, we're going to be talking about the BI and the reporting side, on the dashboarding side. But again, we cover things from an operations perspective, from a financial perspective, from a budgeting and forecasting perspective, as well as from an AI assistant perspective. So again, it really allows for the customer to be able to pick and choose the areas that are important for them to start. And again, it's a type of thing where you can grow with. You can start small and you can build your way outwards. So you don't have to take on everything all at the same time. That being said, I'm going to go right over to the demo environment. And from the demo environment, what you have is a browser kind of system that you're kind of have access to. And within here, again, you have your folders and your subfolders, and you can create things from a team perspective where you can share, and again, full-blown security in terms of who's allowed to see things and who's not. So if you're going to have people on the executive side that want to have things that are just for them, you can create an executive folder and you can secure it for just those people. But you can also have your own My Content area where it's your own personal workspace. So you're creating things that only you see. And therefore, if you want to have a play area for just you, that's where you put it. And then you can share it and put it into the team content when you're ready. That being said, when I go in to the application, I'm going to open up, I have some stuff that's already pre-prepared. So I'm going to open up an existing area where I've created a specific dashboard that's there. So I'm going to open that up. And as you can see, what I'm kind of showing here on the left-hand side is the model that's been created for SAP Business One. So here's an example of one that's there. And you can see things are organized into various folders and, again, subfolders that might be there in regards to what they can look at. So if I open up like the calendar folder, I'm going to see all of the information that I have there. And I can open it up and it's actually going to show me all the information that's available. In this particular case, I can see that I've got history that goes all the way back to 2016. Now, as I'm kind of scrolling through this area, I have a whole bunch of things with regards to year, quarter, month, and so forth. I've got all of this information available for me to kind of look at. Now, I've got information at the calendar level or at the fiscal level. But again, I also have the ability to look at things for salespeople. So I've got, or my item master. And again, what we're doing is we're pulling in information that's the most commonly used area, and we're making it into an area where it's easy to have it organized. So if I open up the general area, I can kind of see the information that's there, where I've got the description, the family, also known to some people as the item group, the selling unit of measure, the category. And again, some of these things here are user-defined fields, so UDFs inside of SAP Business One. So you're not just limited to the data that comes de facto or default from SAP Business One. But if there are user-defined fields, we can incorporate that into the model. So again, giving you the ability to be able to report on that information as well in a very organized area. So again, you can see that things have been organized within the general section. And again, we're not pulling in every single field of SAP Business One. We're bringing in the ones that are most common, but then once the customer has a chance to play with it, there may be other fields that they want to be able to have, and those can be easily added into the solution. But we're trying to give the customers the ability to have a starting point. You can also see there's cost cell information, there's supply information. Again, there's a bunch of information that becomes available that are standard from an SAP perspective. We've also got our customer folders, which are organized into ship tos and bill tos. And again, even within there, you can see that there are subfolders that are created in order to organize the information. So I can open up the general area where I can see the customer, the group, the territory, the salesperson at the bill to level. And again, in this case, you'll see some UDFs that come into play. So again, everything is organized. Now, when I go into some of the other areas, kind of like, I'm looking at things like I've got sales credits over here, and I open that up. Again, things are organized into header information and line information, and really allowing for me to look at things the way I want. And what we've done specifically with regards to sales credits is that we've organized sales and credits into the same folder, but we've created the ability to look at things specifically for a transaction type that allows me to differentiate between sales and credits. So inside this model, it's going to bring in sales and credits right out of the box. But if you want to just see credits, you can just look at credits. You want to just see sales, you can just look at sales. But again, it's going to allow you to look at it all at the same time instead of having to create one query that you're doing it for sales, another query that you're doing it for credits, and then merging it together in some sort of, let's say, Excel spreadsheet. So again, really giving you that ability to look at things in a very easy manner from that perspective. Now, looking at this dashboard that's here, you can see as an example, we're focusing here specifically on sales. And when I'm looking at sales information, you can see exactly what's going on. So in this case, I can see that I'm looking at this data. And again, we're looking at all periods. So again, the numbers that you're seeing here are elevated numbers because we're looking at data that goes back probably 10 years. So again, it's giving you information. But what you can see, and again, if I want, I can actually go up here and I can look at for a specific period. I can say, go into my year and I can specifically look for, let's say I just want to see it for 2024. I can just bring that in and it's going to give me that information at that level of detail. But the key thing is that you'll notice that I've got the salesperson and I've got the item categories over here. You can see that by me just clicking on any one of them, it's going to start filtering the information accordingly. So again, really giving me that flexibility to interact with what I'm looking at. I can look at a specific item category if I want. I can look at multiple salespeople if I want by control clicking things. Again, really giving me that flexibility inside the dashboard side of things. I can remove the filter easily by just clicking on remove. And now we're back to our original number just for 2024. Now, in looking at this information, I also have the ability to continue embellishing this, to adding more to this dashboard. All I've got to do is I can say, you know what? I want to go ahead and bring in things like gross profit. So I can take gross profit, even though I have the number over here, I'm just going to drag it and bring it right into the lower left-hand quadrant. In bringing that number, I'm going to see that full number that shows up. But now what I can do is I can say, okay, this is good, but you know what? I'm going to look at this. I want to see this for, maybe I want to see this for a specific information on the customer level. So I can open up the customer. And what I can do is I can say, you know what? I'm looking at this from a customer perspective. I want to see it in the bill to, and I want to see this for by territory. So again, I can bring in territory. If I just drag and drop it, what's going to happen is it's going to create me a visualization based on what I'm looking at. Now, if I don't want to see it by that, I can say, you know what? Let me undo that. Maybe I want to see it by customer. Again, I can look at that and I can bring in all my customers. Again, what it's going to do from a somewhat of an AI perspective is it's going to show you a visualization based on what it feels the best way to see the information. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it may not be. So I can see if I put my mouse over some of these things, it's going to tell me what the GP is for any one of these customers. Now, I might say, I don't love that display. Maybe I want to change it. So what I can do is I can click on the change visualization. And what's going to happen when I click on the change visualization, it's going to come back to me with some other recommended visualizations, or I can scroll through the other visualizations that are showing up over here. And maybe there's something else that catches my eye. The one that I really love is always the word cloud. And again, by clicking on the word cloud, it's actually going to show me now all of the customers, and whoever makes up the biggest font is going to account for the biggest amount of sales. So I can see, as an example, Spectrum will show up as the highest number that's over there. So again, really giving me that flexibility. But now what I can do is, now that I have this visualization, I can say, you know what, I only want to see it for a specific salesperson. So I click on that salesperson and all of my information now changes. So now I can see what their net sales are, I can see their GP, and I can see that Limousin for them is the highest one that's there. So again, really giving me that capability of being able to look at things. I can take it a step further. I can go over here and I can say, you know, I want to create a navigation path. And that navigation path that I'm going to create is going to be something along the lines of year, quarter, and month. Now I'm doing it as year, quarter, and month, but this could be anything. This could be year, quarter, month. This could be, you know, customer, or could it be salesperson, customer, item. It could be 3 levels deep, 5 levels deep. You pick and choose how that kind of shows up. So if I just type in YQM as the name that I'm going to give it, I click on OK. Now I've got this YQM that shows up over here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take, let me close up some of these folders. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this year that shows up over here, and I'm going to take that at the same time. I'm going to take net sales. And then I'm going to go ahead and just drag and drop it over here. And now the combination of them are going to show up. Now you'll notice that it's only showing for 2024 because I have a filter defined for 2024. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clear the filters. And now what you're going to do is you're going to see the trajectory for this particular salesperson. I can control click it to see for all salespeople. Now I'm seeing the trajectory. And now I have the ability to say, you know what, I want to see 2024. And now I can right click and I can just say, drill down. And again, it's going to give me the 4 quarters. And again, if I want, I can go right down to the month. So again, really giving you that flexibility of looking at things the way you want, how you want to see it, in what visualization that you want to see. You can really pick and choose how things are kind of being looked at from that perspective. So that's what I wanted to touch on first and foremost from a dashboarding perspective. But when you get from a reporting perspective, again, you have the same kind of model that's available to you. And that model allows you to kind of leverage the same information that you looked at from the dashboarding side. But this time, what I'm doing is I'm just going to take a couple of fields that are over here. So I'm going to take things like sales quantity, maybe I'll take sales quantity, net sales, and gross profit. By control clicking those fields, I can now drag and drop those into a reporting environment, giving me the ability to look at things the way I want. So now I've got that information, and depending on the level of granularity that you bring something into a report, that's going to control how you are able to see things, how you're able to look at things. So now what I can do is I can say, okay, this is great, but you know what? I only want to see it for a specific year. You go into the calendar and you say, I'm going to right click on the calendar. I'm going to say filter for just for 2024. So I'll filter on 2024. And now my numbers are just going to be 2024 related. So what I can do now is I can go into the item master, and I've got a bunch of information that's here. I say, you know what? I want to see this by item category. So what I can do is I can go ahead and take this information and bring it from this perspective. And you can see now I'm looking at it by item category, giving me that capability of being able to see what I'm looking at. Now, I can see this and I notice that I've got some stuff here that's with a dash, which means that it's non-product related. And I really don't want to see that information. So I can actually click on this dash and I can say, you know what? Let's exclude anything that has a dash. So I'm going to exclude that. So now it just removed it. So it's not removed from the data, but it's removed from the report that we're creating right here. Now what I can do is I can say, you know what? I'd like to see some information from a customer perspective. So if I go to the customers, I can actually bring in some information. I'm going to take in something like the territory. So I'll take in that territory and I'm going to bring it right to here. I can either bring it to the right or to the left. I have a choice. Once it's there, I can see this information. And now I have the ability to group by territory. So I can click on the territory and create that grouping. So now things are organized, but you'll notice that I have some territories that are not defined. Not a lot of information, but you know what? I don't care about territories that aren't defined. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that. So I'm going to exclude that, exclude any nulls. So now I can see Canada, I can see the Caribbean, I can see Florida North, and I can keep going through to see the various territories that I set up. Now, once that's done, I also have the ability to create calculations. So you'll notice that I have gross profit dollars, but I don't have gross profit percent. I can click on gross profit percent, click on net sales, and then I can click on the calculate menu over here. And then it's going to ask me, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to do plus, minus, multiply, divide, or do you want percent gross profit on net sales, which is what I want? So I click on that, and you'll notice the name that it gives it. Name that it gives it, it's gross sales profit. I don't like that name. I can double click on it. I can change the name the way I want it, and I say, you know what, I'm calling it percent gross profit. I click on OK. There it is. I don't like the location. I want to put it at the end. I can just drag and drop it over to the right. Now I have it the way I want. But we'll also notice that there are things that have net sales of zeros. I don't want anything that's $0 of net sales. So I can click on that $0 and again, go back to the filter and say, you know what, give me anything that's greater than 0. So now that's what's going to show me. So I can see all of that information. The last thing that I can do from a reporting perspective, again, we're just touching at the high level. I can take all 4 measures and say, you know what, I'm going to summarize this and create a default summary. And now it's going to give me a summary for all the territories by item category. And again, I can click page down to start looking at the other territories that are there. So again, really giving me that flexibility in terms of what I'm looking at and going right down to the bottom and seeing the overall summary. So again, depending on the level of detail, I could have brought in item description. I could have brought in customer description. Again, I can look at this however I want. And depending on the level of granularity, that's how things are going to show up. Okay. So I'm going to take now a switch over from an AI perspective on what we can kind of do from the AI perspective. Now that you've kind of seen things, what the model looks like, you've seen things what look like from a dashboarding perspective, from a reporting perspective. Again, we're just touching on it. I'm going to now go back to the model and say, I'm going to start asking some questions. So this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask a question. The way I'm going to do it is I'm going to go into the ask a question area. So it brings me into an area. And the first thing that it's going to ask me to do is to select a source. Now, the source that I'm going to be selecting is specifically for, in this case, the first one I'm going to do is from a sales perspective. Now, what I've done is I've created a model that is streamlined. That's not the big model that you just saw, but it's a streamlined model because it allows me to control what I want to make available to a particular set of users in the company to not overwhelm them. Because again, the objective here is to make it easy for the business users that may or may not have technical capability, but they want to be able to get some answers to questions in an easy fashion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select that source that I've created inside of my packages folder, and I'm going to open up the one that I created. So once I've opened it up, now I have the ability to start asking questions. But before I ask a question, I'm just going to say, you know what, I'm going to go over here in the ask a question area. I'm just going to say, you know what, just create a dashboard based on what's there. If I click on create dashboard, what's going to happen now is it's going to create a dashboard based on the model that I've created. Now, what you're going to see is a bunch of stuff, a bunch of tabs. There's 3 tabs that showed up. But first, before I go into that, I want to show you from a sources perspective, I want to show you what I've created here is I've created a streamlined model. I didn't include a lot of information, probably about 12 to 15 fields that are there that are significant for them to look at from a time perspective, market, product, location area, from a salesperson, and then some measures that became available here. Again, we're able to pick and choose what we want to make available to the business user from an AI perspective. When we just said create dashboard, it just looked at this information and it said, this is what we think you want to look at. But again, that's where it starts. Doesn't mean that's where it ends. So now as I'm looking at this, you can see that if I put my mouse on any particular area, as an example, I'm looking at Colorado, I can see what the freight dollar amount is. I can see the profit. I can do that for any particular area that I want, and that's going to give me information on what I'm looking at. So again, if I look at Colorado, I can even click on Colorado. And again, you'll notice as I'm clicking on things, all the other visualizations are changing at the same time. So again, really giving me the ability to interact with the dashboard. I can see freight and profit by month. I can see it by salesperson. I can see it colored by freight by month, colored by salesperson. Again, this is just giving me a starting point to look at. Now, not only do I have that ability, I can also look at some of the other tabs. I can go to the profit tab. I can see what's going on there. I can see things from a cost perspective, what's going on there. Again, it's creating these visualizations of what's already in play. Now, if I go back to any one of these tabs, I now have the ability to look at the insights that are being created. You'll notice that there's a little thing that's over here called narrative insights. Once I click on those narrative insights, now it's going to open up a whole area of information that I may not have known. Again, it's giving me insight into the data that's there based on what it thinks that are be suggested insights that are going to be of importance. So it's telling me in this particular case that the state of Michigan has the highest freight at 617,000, followed by Colorado at 460,000. So again, I can look at all these different insights that it's giving to me to be able to look at it. I can see here for freight, the most significant values are Michigan and Colorado, and their freight values add up to $1.1 million, which is about 31.7% of the total. Again, giving me insights because the total of all freight is $3.4 million. So again, giving me insights into areas that I want to be able to see or be able to kind of get some insight from that information. But again, that's just the tip of the iceberg, because now we can start getting into more questions. So I can go to the assistant now by going into the assistant area. And once I'm in the assistant area, I can start asking questions. I can ask any questions that I want. So as an example, I can say, you know what? I want to see, what my total sales are and profit by year. So again, I can take that question, I can go ahead and put that question into play, and I can ask that question. By asking that question, it's going to come back with an answer. In this particular case, it's showing me for the last 3 years, it's showing me for sales and profit what my numbers are. Again, that's the first kind of question that I can ask of that's there. I can take it another notch. I can say, you know what? I like that, but you know what? I want to see what my top 3 products were for, let's say, for sales for 2024. So again, you can further ask that question. And again, by clicking on that question, you can see now it's going to come back with those 3 products that were the most done in sales for 2024. So again, you really get to ask those natural questions. But now we can take it up another notch. So what I can do is you can see up here, I've got the ability to, I have my freight, my profit, and my cost. I like that. I want to keep it there. But now I can add another tab. And now when I add another tab, it's going to ask me to pick a template. What template do I like? So I'm just going to pick a template here that's a 4x4. I click on that. And now we've got 4 tabs that are there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this tab, in this case, sales, just for argument's sake. Put that sales in, and there we go. So now if we go back to our assistant, or our AI assistant that allows us to ask natural questions, I'm going to ask questions instead of what is or what are. I'm actually going to ask it to give me questions on show me, so I can actually see some visualizations. So in this particular case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, you know what, show me all product lines for sales. So I click on ask the question, and now it's going to come back with a visualization based on the question that's asked. Now you'll notice a couple of things. Number one, you're going to see that it's defaulted right here to a column, but maybe I like it as a bar visualization. Maybe you want to have it as a point visualization or some sort of pack bubble, or you want to see the actual data from a crosstab perspective. Again, giving you the different options that you can look at the way you want to see it. I like to look at it. Maybe I like to look at it like this. I'm happy with this one. And notice also that it's giving me insights. It's telling me that Sweet Plantains has the highest sales at 151 million, followed by Yucca at almost 43. So again, it's giving me insights to the information that I'm looking at. I can click on show more. It'll give me many more insights to look at, like I showed previously. I can share this insight, but I also have the ability to add this. So I can click on the add area and I can say, you know what, I want to add this to the current dashboard. So now we're starting to create a dashboard based on the insight questions that we're asking. I can continue asking other questions along the lines. I can say, you know what, I'd love to see similar kind of thing, but I want it by salesperson. But I also not only want to see sales, but I want to see sales and profit. So again, I put the question that I want to ask, and then I execute that question. And again, it's going to come back to me with these visualizations. This time it's showing profit and sales by salesperson. Now, maybe I don't like this kind of display. So what I can do is I can say, you know what, I'm going to change it to a cluster bar instead. So now it's going to show it to me that way. And I can say, you know what, I want to go ahead and add that to my dashboard. So now I've added that second one to my dashboard and I can see what's going on there. Again, giving me that sort of insight in terms of what I'm looking at. Now, I can continue along with my visualization in terms of what I'm looking at, in terms of the type of questions that I'm asking. So another question I'm going to ask in this particular case, I'm going to say, you know what, show me all the manufacturers by month for sales. So I put that question in, I run the question, and again, it comes back to me with the visualization. In this particular case, it's coming back to me as a heat map. So again, it's showing me what information is there by manufacturer, by month, and again, giving me the ability to then add that directly to my dashboard. And I can see that the information that it's coming back to me with is it's showing me all the manufacturers, and whatever has the darker color means that it represents the more sales. So you can see how things are showing up. The last kind of visualization that I wanted to bring into there was something that was geographical. So I'm going to say, you know what, show me the top 10 states for sales. And again, I'm going to go ahead and ask that question, bring it in. And what it's going to do is, because it knows that it's geographical, it's going to show up as a map. So now what I can do is I can either share it or do whatever I want, but I also have the ability to just drag and drop it to where I want. And when I drag and drop it, it's going to go right onto the canvas. So again, in looking at this information, I can now see what's going on with regards to my information. But now I can say, you know what? I like this information, but you notice that when I put out, let's say I'm looking at Aaliyah as an example, I can see what her numbers are, but you know what? I can see sales and profit. But when I look at, let's say, the state of Florida, I can see only sales. Well, you have the ability to control that in terms of what information you see when you hover. All you have to do is open up the model, and you'll see that we have other measures that are there, like profit and freight. And what I'm going to do from a fields perspective, you're going to see on the right side, you're going to see that we have this tooltip. So I'm going to take profit and freight and just drag and drop it right over to here. And now what's going to happen is when I put my mouse over the state of Florida, now you're going to see sales, profit, and freight, all that information. So again, giving you the ability to have that starting point and being able to play with it. But now what I can do is I can say, you know what, I like this. You know what, I want to just focus in on Aaliyah. So I'm looking at Aaliyah, I can see her information, but you know what, I'd like to see this. I'm looking at this information. I click on Aaliyah, and now I can see her information. All my visualizations are now going to change. So now I can say, I can see her biggest area is with regards to sweet plantains. I can click on sweet plantains, and it's going to give me the context of what they're doing from a sweet plantains perspective for regards to yuca cooked. So I click just on sweet plantains, and now my numbers are now going to change as well. And I can see that Big Banana is the biggest manufacturer that's going on. And I can see the tendency that's going on across the months in terms of, let's say, October being a very big month, because again, it's one of the darker colors. So again, really giving me that flexibility. But if I say, you know what, I only want to see it for the state of Maryland, I can see the numbers, that it's 5.5 million. I can click on the state of Maryland. Now everything's going to change also. So now I can see for Maryland, one of the big areas is the month of April, where it's accounting for 609K. So again, really giving you that flexibility in regards to looking at that information the way you want to be able to see it and how you want to be able to see it. Okay. The last piece that I want to show from an AI perspective as well is I'm going to switch now. I'm going to go back to where we were from a ask a questions area. And this time what I'm going to do is, instead of looking at this information from a sales perspective, I'm going to change my model. I'm going to say, you know what, I want to change it now towards my AR model. So I have an accounts receivable module. And what I'm going to do from this perspective is I'm going to say, you know what, I want to start asking questions, and I want to stay within this interface. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, you know what, I'd like to see my top 5 customers that owe me money. So I'm going to ask the question, show me the top 5 customers for amount due. I execute that question. And again, it's going to come back to me and say, these are the top 5 customers. And if you look on the right-hand side, it's going to give me the insights. It's going to say the customer Goya has the highest amount due at $891,000, followed by fine at about $217. And again, it's giving me some context of some of the other information that is there in terms of, from the top 5 customers, it's telling me across these top 5, I have $1.5 million that's due. Now, I can say that if I want to focus in on that particular customer, I can say, you know what? I want to see all the aging buckets for this customer and see what they owe. So again, I can say, show me the aging buckets for amount due for that particular customer, Goya. So I click on that question. It comes back to me now and saying, well, by the way, in the 0 to 30, you've got 645K that's due. In the 31 to 60, you've got about $244,000. And again, it's giving me insights on the right-hand side as well. Now, I can say, okay, I looked at that one customer, but you know what? I want to see my aging across all my aging buckets. So again, I'm going to go ahead and ask that question to show me all aging buckets and their amount due. So I go ahead and ask it, and it comes back to me now with a visualization saying, okay, this is what you owe in the 0 to 30, 31 to 60, 61 to 90, and 91 to 20. Not much that's going on over there, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the over 121. Now, I'm looking at the over 121. If I put my mouse over that, it's telling me that $474,000 are accounting for the over 121. That, to me, is a little bit of a problem. So what I can do is I can say, you know what? For that amount that's over 121 days, I want to see the top 3 customers that are causing that problem. And again, I can ask that question. So you ask that question, you say, show me that, and for the amount due, and I click on execute. And now it's going to show me all aging across the board for those top 3 customers with the amount due that's over 121 days. So in this case, I can see that the customer find is the highest aging at almost 217,000. But if I look at it, you can see also that it's around the same amount what they owe due across the board. So again, it's giving me information in terms of who those customers are and what they owe. Now, I look at this and I look at the insights that comes across, and again, it's telling me some additional information that I may not know just by the question that's being asked and by the data that we're exposing. So now what I can do is I can say, you know what, I like that, but I'd like to see the top 5 salespeople that are showing aging of 121 days. Maybe there's something that has to do with a salesperson. So again, instead of looking at it by customer, now I'm going to look at it by salesperson, because as you know, every customer is tied to a salesperson. So I'm going to go ahead and ask that question. And in this particular case, now it's telling me, this is what I've got for an amount due. And I can see that Stephen and Juan are accounting for the biggest amount of the 121 days. I do have some with Glenn, Brady, and Maria, but not so much. I got to focus more on Stephen and Juan. Maybe I need to have a conversation with them. So in looking at this, I can say, I can look at the insights, and again, it's telling me that Stephen has the highest aging, and then it's followed by Juan. And again, I can see all of those insights. But maybe there's something that I want to see some related visualizations. So I can click on here and I can say, you know what? Show me some additional visualizations related to what I'm looking at over here. So when I do that, it's going to show me now a different visualization, but this time it's showing me amount due by state. So now I can see, for example, in this particular case, that the aging in California is at 121 days plus is 217K, but across the board, the state of California owes $566,000. So again, it gives you an idea, almost half or just under half, about 40% is coming of the aging in California is at 121 days plus. But if I look over at the state of Florida, I can see it's 230,000 versus 895 as a total AR across the board. In looking at this, I like it, but now I have the ability to take it one step further. Not only can I look at the insights, but I can say, you know what, I like this, but you know what, create me a dashboard from the chart that I'm looking at right now. And again, if I do that, based on the data that was there, now it's going to start creating me a dashboard on exactly what I saw, but again, giving it to me more context. So I can see now the amount due by the different, by the different areas. Here's the state of California, here's Florida. I can look at anything else. And again, looking at these other visualizations that are coming up. But again, I can look at just the 121 days if I want. Again, focusing on that. I can look at it all by state. Again, giving me some visualizations just for Florida, just for California, and just for Colorado. Again, giving you context in terms of what you're looking at. So the key thing is that it gives you the ability from a user perspective to be able to ask these natural language questions and be able to turn that into a result, into an answer or to a visualization that you can further work with. You can control the direction that you want it to go with a user that may not be as experienced. They don't need to take it to the next level, but at least it gives them a way to get answers to questions without having to rely on other people to give them that insight. Because at the end of the day, the business decisions that they're going to make them whether they have the information in front of them or not. And a lot of people are going to make those decisions based on gut instinct. This is going to give you the capability to give them the tools to be able to ask that question, whether they're technically proficient or not. But as long as they know how to ask the question, which they do because they'll send it by email or via Teams, and it gives them that instant gratitude of giving them that information of what they want to look at. Okay. So I'm going to switch back now over to the deck now that we've kind of saw that. And what we kind of saw from a solution architecture, the way it works is the solution itself can bring in sources of SAP Business One, but it also has the ability to bring in other data sources. So that can be anything. That can be other Excel spreadsheets, other SQL data sources, cloud sources, maybe a CRM system, maybe another ERP or another set of data. Again, you're not just limited to bringing in data from SAP Business One. This is going to give you something that allows you to use one platform to analyze and get analytics from all your different data sets at your fingertips. And what we do from a modeling perspective, we take all that information and we make it available into the data warehouse to make it easy for analytics, reporting, and dashboarding and what have you to be able to have access to that information in a much easier way so that you don't need to know the names of the tables in SAP. You don't need to know the field names. You don't need to know the relationships between the tables. Again, it's making it easy for the business user to be able to have access to that. And it's optimized for reporting, dashboarding, and AI analytics. So from that perspective, it allows us to connect on the tools that we're working with, which is what you saw, to be able to give that information. Now, we focused a lot more on the Cognos analytics this time, but there's a whole thing on the planning analytics side as well that allows us to do the budgeting and forecasting and the what if scenarios and being able to look at that information. And if there are people that are interested in seeing more of that, we're more than happy to set up additional time to be able to kind of explore those areas as well. In terms of how we kind of model things, again, these are all of the modules that we kind of work on or what we have in terms of subject areas, whether it's operations, whether it's financials. And again, there are certain things that you can start with, and then you can add on other areas. So again, it's a type of tool where you can kind of grow with, and once you kind of see the value, you can start small and you can build outwards. You don't have to take this as a big bang approach. Some of the latest additions that we kind of brought on are listed in the bottom left-hand corner. So these are new things that we kind of just recently put out. And again, we're constantly putting out new information, new modules, because again, we're always getting these use cases from customers of things that they want and the value that it's giving to them. It's making things so much easier for them to be able to do. Recently we just did one for inventory expiry, especially for customers that are in the food business. Expiry dates are so important, and being able to see what's coming up for expiry next month versus the next 3 months, it's invaluable because then they can act on that information rather than having to wait and having all this money being thrown out in the garbage. So it really gives them that level of insight into their data. So whether you're working from in this particular case, from an operations perspective, everything is organized into folders and subfolders. If there are fields that you don't like, they can be removed. They can be renamed. For customers that are working in multiple languages, you can even have the model in multiple languages. So depending on, the user wants to go in, if they want to go into a different language, they can look at it in a different language. The model can be in a different language. Even though the reports are created, it will show up in the language of their preference. Again, really giving them that flexibility. We also have, and we didn't focus in on today, on the financial reporting side of things, again, giving you the ability to do P&Ls, do balance sheets, being able to look at actual versus budget, giving you all that information at your fingertip, being able to go right down to the ledger information, the GL transaction capability. But again, being able to look at the forest before you look at the trees, before you go down to the grass. So the modules, again, the way we go to market is, we have them in three main areas, three core areas, whether it's operations, whether it's financial reporting, whether it's budgeting and forecasting. Again, we allow you to kind of start in the area that you want And what we try to do is we try to work with you from a turnkey approach. Everything from soup to nuts kind of comes into play, from the kickoff to the install to the services to the training. Everything is all there in one nice little package so that customers can pick and choose how they want to start. And again, you can start small and then you can work your way outwards as you see fit so you can get that true ROI from what you're looking at. When customers are looking at these things, again, there are other tools that are out there on the market. We always tell customers that you can either build it from scratch, and we tell customers you end up reinventing the wheel. And it's a slow process. You can buy a software, customize it to make it work, and then you have these turnkey solutions where you have a purchase and go live. And that's really where our quick start solution falls. It allows you to get that quick up and running tool right out of the box, and you're ready to go in a under 2-week window. And that pretty much concludes things. So now we'll open up the floor to questions and see if there's anything. So I'll pass it back over to David and see where we can go from there.
Yep. Hey, thank you so much, Corey. That was an amazing presentation. I will say, though, I don't think we need to go into the aging AR because nobody on this phone call probably has to chase down, accounts receivable. So I'm kidding. But we do have some good questions that came up here to ask you. The first one is, and some of these you kind of answered a little bit during the way. But I guess just to validate it, like with the SAP database, okay? It connects obviously, but is that a connection that is in real time? Is it something that like it's pulling it at that moment when you're pulling a report, or is it something that updates like on a scheduled frequency? How does that exactly work? If you could spend a couple seconds on that.
Yeah, great question. So what we do from a default perspective is we're extracting the information from SAP, putting it into a data warehouse. That data warehouse is refreshed. For most customers, they're refreshing it on a nightly basis. I have some customers that are doing refreshes 5-6 times a day. So again, really giving them that capability. That being said, it does not prevent us from being able to run some of these things or have some of these things run directly against the live operational system. The advantage here of having a data warehouse is that it's modeled and optimized for reporting and dashboarding. But there are certain use cases, there are specific scenarios where it's going to be of importance to have true real time. So we do have the ability to create or have a query that we'd use that would connect to the live data source. And when you run it, it's going to be whatever's in SAP is going to show up in your analytics.
Okay, perfect. I believe that answers your question. If you have a follow-up, please throw it in the Q&A and we'll get to it. Next one's going to be a little bit more of a techier question, which I'll read verbatim for you. Is the AI model that is used in this completely local to the install for that client? Like, does it have to communicate to the cloud in any way? Do they have safeguards for IP, their intellectual property? And does it ensure that this data is not externally available accidentally?
Love that question. So the answer to that question is it's non-generative. So when we're working with the AI insights, it's only staying within your environment. It's not going to the outside world like a ChatGPT or what have you. It's using Watson analytics, so Watson capability from IBM Watson, and it's connecting that information and it's kind of giving you the information based on what's in your data model, what's on your environment, and it's not being shared anywhere outside. So it's staying self-contained in your own environment. And we get a lot of those questions because from a security perspective, that they need to have that information and they're worried about sharing things and working with AI because of the outside nature of going to the internet and worried about security breaches and what have you. This is self-contained. It's staying all within your environment.
Perfect. Thank you. Now, I know that you've already kind of talked a little bit there at the end about how it can act like a data warehouse, connect with Excel, stuff like that. But you've also mentioned the quick start as well too. So if they have their budgets in Excel, are they able to get that into your system with the quick start?
Great question again. So again, we do have our budgeting and forecasting module. And what a lot of people want to do, or a lot of customers like to do, is they like to start with saying, well, I have this already in Excel. Why can't I just use that? Absolutely. We can actually take that data from Excel. We can load it into the system, giving you the ability to do actual versus budget, directly inside of the tool set that we're showing. So if you do have budgets already there, we would look at the way it's designed, and we look at the level of granularity that it's at, and we would load that information and giving you that kind of that capability. And what a lot of customers end up doing is they end up starting off that way first and foremost, and then once they realize the level of granularity they can do with inside of planning analytics and bring that to their equation, because again, a lot of customers will keep things at a high level at, let's say, at the item group level, at the period level. But when they want to start going even more granular, we have the ability to say, well, we can give it so that you can go right down to the customer, right down to the item. But doing that for so many products, for so many periods, it's a crazy amount of work, where inside of our solution, it makes it very, very easy to do.
Okay, and then I guess how come you aren't connecting to like SAP Business One directly and instead using a separate database? Is there a specific reason for that? Is it because of the data warehouse, or what exactly?
Well, for those that are familiar with SAP Business One, they'll know that there's a lot of tables and there's a lot of fields, and the relationships are not always so straightforward. And you always need to kind of connect to multiple transaction tables aside to, other dimension tables that are going to be there, item master, customer master, and so forth. What we try to do is we denormalize the database inside of SAP. And what does that mean from a simplicity perspective? We're reducing the amount of tables by creating the data warehouse, and we're optimizing it. So when I was talking about sales and credits as an example, in the presentation, you'll notice that there's there's a sales header table and a sales detail table, but there's also a credit header and a credit detail table. So those are 4 transaction tables. And what we're doing is we're taking those 4 transaction tables, bringing in the key fields that are of importance, and bringing it into one table. And therefore, from a relationship perspective, everything is kind of clean and it's easy to work with, and it's optimized from that perspective. So from a performance perspective, you're going to get the best performance going right up against the data warehouse as opposed to the SAP Live system. However, again, as I mentioned before, if there are specific use cases where we need to have certain types of analytics or certain types of reports that go live, absolutely we can do that as well. But out of the box, the straightforward answer is we go up against the data warehouse. It's best practices.
Okay, I just got a message that says, quote unquote, take my money. But I have one final question for you, Corey. It's actually a 2-part question
Sure.
to sum things up, and then we'll wrap up. It
Sure.
is the first part is you mentioned training, stuff like that. So what kind of training is provided with the solution? And then the second part is you mentioned that it was roughly about 2 weeks to get up and running. What's all involved with getting up and running?
Sure. So from a training perspective, we would be physically coming on site, and we would be doing that training for the end users to show them how to use the tool, what's possibilities, and basically being able to see them as they are working with their information. So they are going to be given specific training exercises based on their data to be able to practice and be able to learn and be able to ask the teacher on, how do I do this with my data? So it's not just generic data that customers don't know. It's specifically, your data that you get to work with. And basically, when the instructor is there live in front of them, they can tell whether or not they're understanding the question. So we can walk around the room, and we're giving mini exercises to build up to larger exercises to make it sure that the business user is comfortable working with it and creating with it and being able to see what's possible. And your second question with regards to, what does it take to get up and running? At the end of the day, once you have the infrastructure in play, which is SAP Business One, we leverage the infrastructure that you already have, and then it's a matter of giving us the green light and we're good to go. We know, because again, we have our template model that we kind of implement, we put that into play, and again, then we let the customer play with it and see where there might be things that, maybe there's additional user defined fields that they want or other fields that they want that wasn't part of the base. We kind of collect that information, but I always tell customers to play with it for, at least a couple of weeks to get acclimated with it. Because again, until you have it live with your information, you're going to start saying, oh, I didn't realize that I can do this. Does that mean I can do this, this, and that? So it's just going to open up a myriad of questions in terms of possibilities for them to go down the road.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Please, thank you, Corey. Thank you, Natasha from the NewIntelligence team for coming on here and putting this wonderful demo together for us all today. It was incredible. It was amazing, enlightening. I loved it. I loved everything I saw. Please reach out to NewIntelligence or us here at Quaint Business, and we will definitely, get you connected, get you a personalized demo, and walk you through everything and find out what the right fit is for your business. Please be sure to follow us on LinkedIn. Check our email announcements for our next product feature, as well as you can watch videos like this one on places like YouTube in a couple days. You'll be able to rewatch it for your enjoyment if you'd like to, and see other great things going on at Quaint. Please also check out our new website, www.quaintbusiness.com, and you'll find a lot of other great resources and information there as well. Thank you again, everybody, for joining us, taking time out of your day. And again, thank you, NewIntelligence and Corey and Natasha for putting on such a wonderful show.
Thank you so much. I appreciate everyone's time and looking forward to working and collaborating with everyone.
Yep. Thank you. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.